compared to a normal session? Yeah, isn't it? It's really interesting. I'm not quite sure what happened. Maybe we'll have to get some feedback. Maybe it's the weather, who knows? But hey, you're here, that's the most important thing. Yeah, that's the most important thing. That's my feedback for you tonight. So I'm interested, when you think about feedback, what comes to your mind? What's the first thing you think about when you think about feedback? Growth. Yes, lovely. What else? Improvement, opportunity. Great. What else? What other things? Who might not like receiving feedback? Sometimes it's difficult, isn't it? Perhaps we receive feedback we don't know quite how to take. We don't know how to receive it. We don't know. Perhaps it's not even delivered in a very effective package sometimes as well. So we'll have a bit of a look at this. How can we actually be better ourselves at giving and also getting feedback? What are some ways that we can actually improve in the way that feedback gets given to us so that effectively it's more useful for us? Yeah, it's more beneficial for us in the long run as well. What's that?
You can give it like a hamburger, like
sandwich.
Yeah, sandwich.
We'll have a look at that. Well done. You've done your homework. Like a hamburger. In fact, I think that's the picture we have, isn't it, Claudia? A picture of a hamburger. So we'll have a bit of a look at that as a technique. And that's exactly what we'll have a look at. So we'll have a bit of a look at what feedback is and what it's not. We'll look at 4 key elements to providing feedback. And again, whether you're giving it or receiving it, 4 elements around feedback, and then we'll have a look at some techniques and some others, including the hamburger. If you're interested in the content that we've got here tonight, here you go. Head to the Pivotal HR Facebook sites, Pivotal HR 2005. You can download all of the content from tonight, plus content from previous sessions if you've missed them. Plus, if you want to keep up to date with our feeds, articles, resources, videos, like us, and you'll get notified of everything that we post on there for you. So some things there. Of course, we would love to hear your feedback as well. So what is feedback? How would you describe feedback?
Good or bad?
Yeah, beautiful. So it can be good or bad. It can be positive or constructive. Yeah, it's interesting to sort of think about the balance in that aspect. What else is feedback?
Opinion?
Opinions, absolutely. Your thoughts, your opinions. And in that, sometimes the best way to receive that is to understand, well, everyone's entitled to their opinion. You might not like it. So we'll have a bit of a look at the best way to respond to feedback, particularly if you don't agree with it as well. What else? You think about what else is feedback. What else is it? Validation, absolutely. It can be assurance, reassurance, and actually confirming what you think you know already. So it can be very useful for us. What else is feedback? Results, absolutely. Have I achieved what you want me to achieve? So expectations, confirming those expectations. Yeah, so have we actually got to where we want to get to in that as well? What else? When you think about feedback, what else comes to mind? Some suggestions, some ideas, some detail. What can you actually improve? What are some things you can work on? So we think about meaningful and useful feedback. We also think about, well, how is the feedback delivered? And when is it delivered as well? And we'll sort of have a bit of a look at these when we have a bit of a look at our elements, if you like. So when we think about feedback, we think about the context. What's said? And again, whether this is receiving or sending. How am I receiving? How am I sending the feedback? So what's the little package, if you like, that the feedback would come in? What about the manner? So we know that there's the words, but then there's how the person delivers it. We'll have a bit of a look at how we receive, how we understand feedback in terms of the manner. Then, of course, timing. When is it appropriate to get feedback, and when might it not be appropriate to get feedback? So can we get that timing right? And sometimes we talk about ASAR. ASAR. What do you think that stands for? We know what ASAP is, I'm thinking. So ASAR. What do you think?
As soon as.
feedback to your manager or to your project supervisor, then you think about giving it as soon as reasonable. Perhaps not as soon as possible, might be just a little bit too emotional, too raw. And of course, again, when you're clarifying or receiving feedback, think about how you respond and what is as soon as reasonable. Do you need time to digest this piece of feedback before you go back with your response? So as soon as reasonable in that timing. And of course, frequency. How many times do we need to provide feedback? And how many times do we need to ask for feedback? What's the frequency? I was doing some work this morning actually with the Victorian Government Department. Funny enough, similar topic, developing manager skills. And we were talking about how the frequency, what do you think? What do you think most managers said in terms of how often they provide structured feedback to their team?
Should be every day.
It should be every day. And they were wondering why they felt it was every year. Every year. Yeah. What's that thing that happens us in organizations about once a year? Appraisals. Yeah, absolutely, appraisals. And funny enough, they're coming up to their appraisal time. The end of this month is when they need to sort of work on that. And this is the time that they start to think about feedback.
Very good question. I might be wrong, just
Yeah.
to clarify. When you say that we want to, the feedback should be given on a daily basis, but
Yes.
I think it will be more controlling of someone's work.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
I might be wrong.
it's interesting. It depends on how you say it.
So the content matters in that.
Absolutely. And how you say it. For example, if I gave you feedback every day and that feedback went like this, how are you going? You know, what you're working on, you know, what struggles, what obstacles are you facing? Versus, have you done that yet? Are you finished that yet? Absolutely. So how I'm doing it? Am I micromanaging you?
Oh, yeah,
Am I micromanaging you, or am I being a supportive manager? Checking in. Particularly, it's going to be times in our career when we need more feedback. There's going to be times in our sort of evolution of learning tasks. We know that when we're learning tasks for the first time, we need more feedback when? At what stages? If you think about tasks, there's the beginning, the middle, and the end of the task. When do you need most feedback?
The beginning of the year.
Yes, absolutely. Beginning and the end, most of the time, particularly the beginning. And that's often the time that a lot of managers, again, don't think about that. And a lot of us just sit around thinking, am I doing this right? I'm a bit worried. So well, whose responsibility is feedback?
Manager,
Manager?
colleague,
Supervisor?
colleague,
Colleagues? Whose responsibility is feedback? Peers?
self,
Yourself. Yeah, interesting. You're all right. You're absolutely right. Every answer you gave is right. And it's also my responsibility, your responsibility. So we all have a responsibility, again, to give and to receive. And of course, the more we do this, and actually look at a model tonight as well, that really shows the power and the benefit of doing that, of actually taking more responsibility for getting feedback, asking for it, and offering it as well. With these managers this morning, we looked at 3 questions that they could ask, and these could be 3 questions that you could ask of yourself in your job. So many of you are doing your placement at the moment. Doing your placement? So a few of you. Anyone finished their placement? Yeah? Not yet, but almost finished? Yeah. So it's interesting to sort of reflect, and of course if you haven't started your placement, fabulous. Here's 3 questions to ask yourself when you're doing your placement. What am I doing that I could stop doing? What am I doing that I need to start doing? So what am I not doing in my placement that I actually need to start doing? And what am I doing that I need to continue to do? And of course we can ask ourselves these questions, but who else could we ask these questions to? Could I start doing? What could I stop doing? What could I continue to do? Who could you ask these questions to? Yes, pardon?
Awesome.
Yourself, absolutely, without a doubt. Yeah.
Talking about the different for supervisors.
Yes. Absolutely. And then the people that you're working with, your colleagues, your peers, just like you mentioned, the same sort of idea. So we can ask inside and up. And that's the sort of thing, and these managers, I was asking them to ask their staff, as a manager, as your manager, what can I do more of? What can I do less of? And what can I continue to do? And their response was, I would like my staff to ask themselves these questions. So it's interesting to sort of think about that. How can we give ourselves more feedback or seek more feedback if we need that to get this balance right, if you like, in terms of feedback. So content, the manner, the frequency, and the timing. Let's have a look at this content. So we think about what we actually say. And again, let's look at this. Giving and receiving, so these both work both particular ways. Where does evidence and examples fit in to feedback? What do I mean by evidence and examples?
Emails.
Okay, emails, so you might have some fact on email. Yeah. Let me give you some examples here, and I want us to compare what these are like. Here's some examples. I want you to compare these. You're always late. You're always late. Versus, you've been late 15 minutes twice over the past fortnight. Last Tuesday and last Friday morning. What's the difference between these two? You're always late, and you've been late.
Evidence.
Yes, absolutely. You've provided evidence. Yeah. That's exactly it. And let's look at that. Is people who are late, are they always late? Most of us are sometimes late, yeah? Or, late more often than not. But it's really interesting when we start to universalize our feedback. And this means that there's nothing we can do about it. If we're always late, then what's the point of giving me feedback? Yeah? But if we start to isolate the feedback and identify when specifically you were late, or when specifically you did something wrong, then we can actually do something about it. We can change our behavior. But if, and the same could be, you're always rude to customers, or you always speak with your hand over your mouth, whatever it might be, whatever the feedback actually might be, we can start to think about how damaging that feedback can actually be versus when you spoke in that meeting this morning and you had your hand over your mouth, it was very difficult for that customer to hear you on the phone. And I'd like you to think about how you could speak more clearly in meetings in the future. So the difference between generalized feedback and beautiful. So same sort of idea when we're giving feedback. You were to say to your manager, you're never available. How do you think your manager's going to feel? Or you always postpone our meetings. How could we package that up better? How could we deliver that better?
You're fired.
You're fired. That's pretty severe feedback. And I guess when we think about feedback, it's about giving a person the opportunity to improve. You're fired. You're closing the door. Yeah, you're closing the door. So how can we structure that better? How can we package that up better?
Command.
Recommend?
First command.
Yes.
Recommend, and then again command.
How would you do that? Give me that in a.
So you can say that, you will do it like this.
Yep.
We stop doing that and then say something constructive.
Okay.
Maybe you have some problem at home or something.
Yep.
You work that out and then
Yep.
we command again.
So you're using your sandwich technique, aren't you? Very good. Yeah, absolutely. What was your suggestion? You sounded good then.
Yeah, I was like lost when he said that. No, all good. I'll get back to you.
That's all right. Lovely. Great stuff. Beautiful. So when we provide evidence in our feedback is going to be much more specific, much more behavioral focused, so people can actually do something with it. So rather than saying, you never make yourself available, when we missed our last one-on-one meeting, the impact of that is I missed out on being able to get approvals from you to move forward on some projects, and I'd really prefer it if we could make sure that we reschedule our meetings within the same week. So we can do something about that. Very specific, very evidence-based, and really providing examples, if you like. And what do you think? What can we do to make sure that our feedback is understood, heard, and acted on? What can we do?
Probably wait for another day.
Okay, you might want to wait.
We can give them a week time to observe their behavior
Yep.
next week and then.
Great. Yeah. You can. Yeah. So that might mean that your the week is lost. If it's really important feedback, the week is lost, the opportunity is lost. But sometimes time can work. What else can we do?
You might ask in that meeting where to from him.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think we could do moving forward?
Yeah.
How do you think we could actually make sure that this doesn't happen again? What do you think would work for us in terms of rescheduling our meetings? So we can engage by asking a question, by getting them involved. So getting them to repeat or getting them involved can help us to make sure that people are actually listening to us when we're giving our feedback. Let's look at some of these other aspects, and then we'll come back to our little activity. Manner, how it's delivered. We don't think. So let's say you're going to give feedback to your manager. This is something that you and your team have talked about. And you're giving the feedback to the manager and you say, we don't think that you're giving us enough feedback.
More like generalizing it with the whole of the team,
Yeah.
not specifically.
Absolutely. So what would we replace that statement with?
I.
I. Why would we use I?
It's about a single
It's less
person.
threatening, yeah, and? What else?
Straightforward.
More personal.
It's much more personal, it's much more straightforward, and you own it. So the concept here is own your feedback. You know, I feel, I think, I believe. So something that's very confident and sure, if you like, and really you being accountable and responsible for your own feedback. What about you need to? You need to make sure that you give clear instructions to me next time. What do we think about that?
It's a forceful thing.
What makes it forceful?
We're ordering them to do something.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. And what word in there creates that feeling of ordering?
You.
You and then the need to. Yeah, absolutely. So the you in particular. So it's really interesting. When we think about pronouns, it's all, or when we think about feedback, it's all in the pronouns. So I becomes a very useful pronoun to use when we're going to deliver feedback to anyone. And indeed when we're receiving it. I would like to ask some questions about this piece of feedback. I would like to find more. I would like to clarify what exactly you mean by I'm always late or whatever it might be. So we're wanting to use as many I's as we possibly can. And that helps you equal out the conversation rather than having this sort of parent-child conversation happening all the time. A much more sort of adult-to-adult balance, if you like. How can we then give a mixed, or avoid giving a mixed message when we think about our feedback? How can we make sure our feedback is clear, is very precise and concise, it's not messy?
Probably, I might be wrong, reconfirming.
How would you do that?
Probably asking like what we discussed and what plan of asking questions.
Asking some questions? Yeah? Yeah, so how do you think we can move forward? What's the plan of action here? What can we do next time? Fabulous. Yeah? Probing questions, fabulous, absolutely, some probing questions. But also look at the fact that we give mixed messages when we use our body and our tone of voice inappropriately. So when our body doesn't communicate the same message as the words. For example, I would like you to be more clear in your feedback. It's really interesting, isn't it? Now, will someone take me seriously? Yeah, it's really interesting. You know, we're not going to get, even though we got the right words, tone of voice is very shallow, soft. We don't want to be shouting and screaming and dictating to someone, but we do want to come across as very confident and clear and very determined in what we're saying. And at the same time, our body, and it really boils down to with our body, what's the difference? What's the difference? Yes. And? Opposite of closed? That's exactly it. Absolutely. Body language really boils down to these two things. Are you open or are you closed? It is as simple as that. You can read any books you want on body language and it really boils down to these two messages. How open am I with my body? And we're talking about open shoulders, open mind, open hips. Yeah, yes. Yeah, as opposed to, yeah. And interesting enough, let's move about this little board here. Is if you're interested in checking out, you're fascinated by body language, have a look at this chap's research. He suggests, Joe Navarro, he suggests that there is a part of the body that communicates the most accurate message about how someone is feeling. What part of the body? From the head to the toe, what part of the body?
Tongue. Tongue?
The tongue?
Eyes.
Eyes? Arms and hands, very important. Not according to Joe, not the most important, not the most accurate. Feet. Yes, who said feet? The feet. Feet. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting. And I see this all the time. You know, people do say, oh, well, my arms are folded, but I'm cold. You know? And that's okay. But it's different when your arms are folded and your legs are folded, and, you know. And then I saw a friend of mine had her, was getting married, and I wasn't able to go along to her pre-wedding party or little hen's party. But I saw some pictures, and her sister was, asking the questions and doing the jokes and so on. And she was standing there beside her sister, and she was standing like this. I looked at her sister, and her sister was like this. And in the picture, and you think, wow, she's in her head saying, I'm really uncomfortable, I'm not confident, and I don't want to be here. And it was really interesting. You could just see the bride-to-be very, firm, feet right under the hips, whereas the other person, even though she was involved, the feet were very much like this. And it's such an interesting thing, and we can think about that in our meetings, in conversations, in presentations, in any situation where we might be. How are my feet right now? Are they sending a very sure, confident, anchored message to the person I'm engaging with? And then, particularly when we think about feedback as well. Let's look at yes, please.
Just a quick one.
Yes.
So you mean to say that when the feet are crossed, so that person is not confident? Is it the case?
Okay, so there's a few things for us to think about. In body language, it's about clusters. So am I seeing enough messages in the body to confirm my decision? But we can never be absolutely positive. When we think about the feet, according to Joe's research, he's done research on this, he suggests that the feet give us the most accurate indication to how the person is feeling. Confident, unconfident, open, closed. So what we can do is check.
You have also what you showed us. Okay, that's almost every woman does it. I mean,
Which?
every woman I've seen.
Every woman.
Well,
In this,
No.
the
Cross
feet,
legs,
yes.
That's very common.
Yes, it's very common.
Yeah.
It's very common.
So
Yeah.
does that mean that it's,
What about me?
you say body count, a person is not confident enough or something?
Again, let's check it out. It's an indication. It's an indication. So what I often do is, if for argument's sake, I stop someone and I'm working on one of my client sites and I see someone I want to talk to. maybe a manager who's been avoiding me or something like that. And I see them coming along the corridor, and they're coming towards me, and I might go, oh, hey, I want to have a chat with you. And I might turn to talk to them, and at the same time, they turn to talk to me. Absolutely! Yeah, so they turn their torso towards me, their upper body towards me, but their feet are still in the direction of the kitchen or the bathroom or the coffee shop or wherever it might be, or wherever Jill isn't. Yeah, that's what. So I will just check, and I will just say something like, oh, I'm just sensing this might not be the best time. Lovely. When is a good time? And then they might say, oh, no, I can talk to you now. Right, lovely. Now, I've got their attention. I've got their head attention, if you like. Not just... Exactly. They're not just half there, you know, they're in sort of, you know, they're not really present with me. So I need to engage the feet. Hey, you guys know about this. What sport is all about the feet? Soccer? Football? Basketball? Cricket. Yeah, it's really interesting. I love cricket too. But it's really interesting with cricket. You know where a batsman, what a batsman's doing if you watch his feet. It's all about head and the feet. It's really incredibly linked. And I love it. It's so strategic. I mean, I'm not so good on the footy and the soccer and stuff like that, so maybe it's important. Feet's important too.
Maybe basketball, when you defend a person,
There you
don't
go.
look at the ball because they can fake you. You always look at their feet.
Feet.
Because no matter where they go, they can't cross you.
I'll talk one more game.
Interesting.
Oh,
Yeah.
Baseball.
Baseball.
So we
Feet
need
as
to
well.
run, home run.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. I think hockey too might be quite crucial with the
Yeah.
feet too. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? We're talking about sort of
But they can play with the wheelchair.
with the which? A wheelchair, yes. I guess the Paralympics perhaps use other tactics.
Last week with every other game.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. So it's interesting, isn't it, when we start to think about the power of the feet and the connection between my attention and where my feet actually are. So let's check, particularly with women. Because you can never be too sure. You can never be
It
too
totally
sure.
depends, yeah. It's not totally depends. Definitely.
It does, absolutely. And this is why, you know, we're talking about humans, there are no guarantees. Yeah, there are no guarantees. But we as humans can check our assumptions and check our thought process, if you like. Now let's look at it. When we're in this feedback conversation, often there's emotion. Now let's look at what happens when there is emotion. Can I ask you to put your hand, please? What normally happens, you push back. Just do it for the hell of it. Go on. I'm going to fall over. That's it. That's more like it. This is what normally happens. Yeah? I push, and the other person pushes back. Now, why does that happen, do you think? Normally. Pardon?
Every action has
Every action has reaction. Interesting, isn't it?
It's like philosophy.
Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? It's really interesting. And what actually happens us is, it's our brain. When we are under threat, someone comes to us, I need to talk to you about something that happened last week. Instantly, we get our back up. Someone's pushing, so I'm going to push back. And that might mean, okay, I'm ready for it. Yeah, but our body says, I want to hear it. So it's really interesting. And then we wonder why our manager perhaps doesn't quite get the message across, or why it doesn't go quite according to plan. So it's interesting from a point of view. And really what's happening inside our brain is we have the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain. Yeah, and we have the amygdala. That's exactly it. We have the amygdala, and the amygdala is the instinct brain. Yeah? It's where we go when we're under pressure, the fight or flight syndrome. That's exactly what happens. And it kicks in the minute we feel that we're threatened, under pressure, or we're stressed. How can you control your amygdala?
Yoga?
Tell me about Yoda.
Uh,
How do you think? If our amygdala is part of who we are as humans, it protects us. Yeah, so it's a good thing. It helps us run away from things that might want to eat us. How, though, in the workplace, when we think about feedback, not necessarily something that's going to eat us, how can we manage our emotions? How can we control our amygdala? What can we do? How do we do that?
by taking a deep breath.
Yeah, absolutely. What was that?
What was it?
USA. You mentioned it.
Yeah. Suggestion is all we need is about 5 seconds. If we allow that 5 seconds, our deep breath, we actually connect back into our prefrontal cortex. That's all we need, about 5 seconds. And that means that our thinking brain kicks in. And we can start to think, okay, what could I learn here? What's the opportunity here? How can I respond in an effective way? Otherwise, if we let our amygdala control us, then we're going to be very defensive. And that's exactly what happens. Our body shuts down, and our manager gets defensive, and then we wonder why it didn't quite go the way we perhaps wanted it to be, or the conversation wasn't as constructive or effective as possible. So controlling our amygdala by just using that deep breath, taking a couple of seconds to be able perhaps to wait, if we can. So just thinking about that emotion when we think about our feedback. And then we think about the timing. We talked about as soon as reasonable. There we go, ASIR, as soon as reasonable. Otherwise, it can be too soon. And perhaps the environment might not be the best environment. And of course, if we give feedback too soon, what does that mean for our evidence and our examples? We don't have enough evidence and examples. Absolutely. So one of the tricks is if you're going to give feedback or you're going to prepare to receive feedback, prepare. Think about it. Again, just like with our amygdala, think about how can I receive this feedback in the best possible way. So we think about our timing as well as everything else. And of course, then we start to think about the frequency. How often? And we've identified perhaps somewhere between every day and somewhere more than once a year. So when was the last time you gave feedback to your supervisor at your placement, one of your tutors or teachers at your professional year, or even your association? When was the last time? What do you think? It's interesting, isn't it? To think about that. Why don't we give feedback to others more often?
eBay Center.
It's just the power of feedback, isn't it? Yeah, it really, really is.
Legit Center.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know, it works. That's exactly what it is. It's someone's reputation. Yeah. It really is interesting, isn't it? But I suppose there's something there built into eBay that facilitates that. You know? That we don't have in normal interactions. What is that, do you think? eBay asks. You know? Just reminds us, please give feedback to this person. And of course, in the real life, that's what we forget. We forget the fact that people rely on our feedback and we rely on theirs. So we've got to make more of an effort to remind ourselves to offer and to ask. You know, I would really like some feedback on the work that I have done. And then we think about, well, how can I get more constructive feedback? How can I get better feedback from the people that I want feedback from? And that's what we start to look at some models and look at good practice in just a second. So here's just a little bit of a summary of some of these micro skills that we've been looking at. How can we perhaps get in a better position and posture with the person? There's no physical barriers between me and them. How can I be open and communicate that openness? How can I lean forward? You'll see this actually spells SOLAR, which is a lovely little acronym to remember. How can I have good but relaxed eye contact? There's a little gaze that we can use in business, which is called the business gaze. And it helps us be better at our eye contact, and it suggests that we just gaze at this area of the person. Yeah, just about this area. So sometimes we think, oh, should I look at their ear? You know what? People know if you're looking at their ear. So gazing at this general area, and that's a nice soft gaze. Now you might have noticed some of these things, of course, can be used outside of professional circles, outside of the workplace. Where else could you use some of these little micro skills? Interviews, which is a little professional in the environment. Dates. Lovely. Dates. It's true. Absolutely, it's true. Absolutely. Absolutely, or boy, or whatever takes your fancy. Absolutely. And if you're interested, this is just a little extra bit that I'll share with you. You can have a romantic gaze.
That's on.
Which means, rather than looking here, you just look further down the nose. Yeah? Just further down the nose, and it's a little bit more romantic. There you go. Business gaze, more romantic gaze. Just bring it down the nose. Just try it out, guys and girls. Try it out. I'd love to hear your feedback on how it's working for you. Yeah. How's that working for you? And then just to summarize our body language, here are some things. Obviously, the posture, as we've been looking at, the feet and so on, but all these little things come together to give us body language, our appearance, how tidy we are, how much we slouch, how much we perhaps use pause and stress in our words, how much we might use eye movements and eye contact, all these sorts of things. And closeness. What do you think? What's the distance between, if you're giving feedback to someone, what should be the proximity or the distance between you and that person? A meter? How long is a meter? Could I ask you to come and join me, please? Stop here. Yeah, that would be you. Yeah. Yeah. I know. It's hard when I don't know your name, so my first question is, what's your name?
My name's Cooper.
Cooper!
Yeah.
What a fabulous name. Thank you, Cooper. And this is just going to be a very quick activity. How very, very quick. Super quick. Super quick. Now, if I'm going to give Cooper some feedback, what would you say? How is this proximity? How is this distance?
A bit more further.
You want to be further away?
No. Bit more
Closer.
closer.
Closer. In fact, in Australia, this is a good distance.
Yep.
Yeah, nice one. Now we can have a talk. Very good. So the distance, I don't know, that's shorter than a meter, right? Yeah, about half a meter maybe? Yeah. No?
Yeah.
Distance, anyway, distance, elbow, tip of the finger. Now this is my personal space.
7%.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? So I'm, how much? Measuring my arm. And then, well, I guess, and then we're in a position where we can have, a good conversation. Not too far away, but watch this. A little bit awkward. You see? Way too close. Invasion of personal space. Now this is where you would have to have a feedback conversation with me. Saying, I'd really like to talk to you about how close you are to me in the workplace. And I would much prefer it if you took a step back. Great stuff. Thank you so much, Cooper. Very cool stuff. Told you it was very good. So we think about that in terms of the distance we might actually get. So invading someone's space, we want to get into a close enough proximity, but not too close. This is something I've shared with you in the past, and it just helps us to understand how much communication is actually delivered through the body, through the tone of the voice that we use, and through the words. This is the body. 55% of the message is going to be delivered through our body, all those aspects of body language. 38% our vocal tone. Just like I mentioned earlier, I'd really like to talk to you about what you've done, the work you did last week. Really? Not convincing me that you're really quite serious about talking to me about that. And then, of course, just like we've been identifying, using more eyes when we start to think about some of the specific words, using more evidence, using more examples when we start to think about some of those specific words, and really break it down. So it really comes back to, again, the manner and the content and the timing and the frequency. So all of these 4 elements. Show interest. Let's be engaged, verbally and non-verbally. If we're non-verbally engaged, what would we be doing?
Eye contact.
Eye contact. What else?
Face expression.
Yes, absolutely, without a doubt. Facial expressions, smiling, laughing. If someone's really telling you something complicated, we're going to look confused. That's normal. It's all those facial expressions. How else can we be engaged? Mimicking. What do you mean by mimicking? And nodding, you're absolutely right. What do you mean by mimicking?
If you're, I don't know, if you're sitting some way, I might sit the same way, just because I'm really intrigued with what you're saying.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's really interesting. And watch this on movies, because actors are trained to do this. If you see a scene and you think, wow, there's really good rapport, there's really good connection between these two people. They will be very similar. They might be leaning towards each other, having dinner or something like that on a table. Or even watch strangers in a restaurant or whatever it might be, and you'll see this. Or watch a couple. They'll be walking with the same foot forward. Really interesting, and that's exactly what happens. And often we do that as humans on a very subconscious, really, really subconscious level. And that can really, really help us build that relationship with someone. Paraphrasing. What does paraphrasing sound like?
Arranging the text.
How would we do that? How would we arrange the text? What does it sound like?
Meaningful way.
Yeah, so...
Saying the same thing in different words.
Okay.
Yeah, synonyms, just putting the synonyms or more like the alternatives.
Alright.
It's like
Making
active and passive.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So it's quite active language and so on. So who can perhaps paraphrase something that we've already covered tonight? Who can paraphrase just one thing we've already explored tonight? Paraphrase it for me.
Feedback.
So how are we to package it up and paraphrase it back?
Delivering the feedback, like giving and providing rather than saying that, just say delivering the feedback, using alternatives.
Okay, yeah. So we might package it up and say, so Jill, if I've understood you correctly, feedback can be given and received, and body language is incredibly important, for example. So we package it up, we can feed it back. So if I could just clarify, these are the things that you feel are important. Tone of voice, body language, and words. So this is part of what? What sort of when we paraphrase, what are we actually showing the other person that we're doing? Yeah, and what do we call that? Listening and understanding, that's exactly it. So it's active listening and active understanding. When was the last time you paraphrased? Sometimes you do that, particularly if you've got a word count. I suppose often we're doing it more verbally. When was the last time you verbally paraphrased? Yeah, absolutely.
Are you reconfirming anything?
Beautiful. Absolutely. So if I've understood you correctly, you need this by the end of the week. Great stuff. Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes we'll do it on emails as well. So and again, how am I doing this? Am I doing it enough? What would happen if I increased my ability to paraphrase? What would that give me? And what would that demonstrate to the other person? We're giving them feedback all the time, if you like, just by paraphrasing. And we've talked a little bit about our questions as well. How can we ask questions to clarify? So if I could just please ask you for some specific examples of when I've been late. Or if I could please just inquire when we're going to have our next meeting. So just asking those sorts of little things. And of course, even things like note-taking. And we'll have a bit of a look at empathy as well. But note-taking can be a great way of just displaying the fact. So when we're listening for them feeling and the emotion, we empathize. Now, what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Sympathy and empathy.
Where you experience it, you experience the situation.
Yeah.
Correct? Or is it the other way around? Is it the other way around?
Is as a
Similar.
result that you know, how you respond, and empathy is something like you anticipate and you
You feel.
just say to the person.
Okay.
Empathy is showing your concern for someone, like sympathy is you feeling bad.
As a result.
Yeah, empathy is.
Empathy with ourselves and someone else's more.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Lovely. Yeah, so sympathy is often when we feel sorry for the other person. I'm so sorry to hear that, that sort of thing. So we actually really feel their pain, if you like, feel their emotion. Empathy is where we demonstrate understanding. We might not have ever felt that emotion. It might not be the same emotion we would feel, but it shows that we are listening. So sympathy is often when we think about saying sorry or apologizing. Empathy is where I'm just communicating to you that I can see how stressed you are. I can... I would say that's a bit more sympathetic. Yeah. I feel your pain, man. Those sorts of things. Yeah. Whereas empathy might be, if someone's really upset and you're thinking, well, this is pretty upset for, I wouldn't quite get this upset, but you've got someone who's upset in front of you. I can see how upset this makes you feel.
Yeah.
You might not feel that same way. You might never be that upset, but you can at least acknowledge the fact that that person is upset
So,
in that circumstance.
sympathy is you haven't experienced yet, but you know the feeling or something. Or you could
Experience
see.
it, and then you know
You could
the
check.
feeling, and you can walk in their shoes.
Yeah.
That's being sympathetic.
Well, empathy can still be walking in their shoes, but it's about understanding rather than really
Feeling.
feeling. Yeah. Yeah. So, and the way to use empathy is empathy reflects back the emotion that you're seeing. Sympathy actually really sort of cries with them.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you're really there with them.
That's what I'm saying. Sympathy is where you experienced it before, and then you're just saying like, yeah, I've experienced it
Yes.
before. And empathy is just like, yeah, if I were you, I would be the same.
Assumingly.
I would say they're both sympathy now.
Yeah,
They're both sympathy. Yeah. So empathy's got nothing to do with you really, more to do with the other person. You know, I can see how stressed you are. I can see how overwhelmed you are. I can tell how angry you are. Or you sound really frustrated at the moment.
When we do crowd services and Christmas service, we don't care.
Absolutely. Yeah, kind of. Let's say we do care. But very much so. Customer services.
He was very confused and I couldn't see that, you know.
Yeah.
That's why I just
Yeah.
got on him.
Yeah.
Saying, this is how you do every day.
Customer service is all about
So
empathy.
I know if you
All
are
about-
absolutely feel you're concerned, but you know we can't help you out with that.
Yeah. And here's some statements. You know, I can tell that this must be really frustrating for you. I can see that this is challenging for you.
Yeah.
So we're just saying I can pick up your emotion and I know how you must feel. So let's say you're giving feedback to someone and they get very defensive on you. Oh, okay, fine then. Yeah, well, it looks like I'll have to do that report all over again. Okay, well, no weekends for me.
Okay.
What's the emotion?
Empathy.
Anger, yeah. So empathize with me. Annoyed. Empathize with me.
My bad, Joe. But you're on your own.
Go further, go further.
Would you need some help?
Well, it looks like you're not going to help me. You know, I'm on my own doing this. You have plans for the weekend.
I'll try.
We are all try.
We are working on weekend.
see you on Monday.
Frustrating for you not to have a weekend this week, but the stuff, the project is quite important.
Okay.
What do you think?
On Monday.
Monday, yeah.
So let's just really boil it down. Something simple. I can see how angry you are about this. I can tell how annoyed you are. So we can really do it very, very simply. You know, just pick whatever the emotion is. You can see, you can pick up emotion. We're humans. We can all pick up on how someone is feeling. Let's just reflect that back. And that helps the other person to effectively regulate their emotion. It's emotional intelligence. We're regulating, helping them to regulate their emotion. And then we can get on and perhaps talk about the business aspects once we've dealt with that emotion piece.